Welcome everyone to the May 28th, 2026 meeting of the Penfield Planning Board. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we have everybody here tonight. Such a nice night outside. So Michelle, please call the roll.
Certainly. Kanauer.
Kanauer here.
Aken.
Aken here.
Daly.
Daly here.
McCooey.
McCooey here.
Tydings.
Tydings here.
Sangster.
Sangster here.
Weishaar.
Weishaar here.
O'Connor.
O'Connor here.
Prinzing.
Prinzing here.
Verigno here.
Okay, approval of the minutes for April 23rd, 2026.
Tydings to make the motion to approve.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Daly.
Daly, aye.
McCooey.
McCooey, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay, tonight's planning board meeting is a work session, and there are a couple of tabled applications on the agenda and a few action items. So with that, Doug, if you want to start with number 1 on the table.
All right, tabled applications will be pretty quick because we have no updates for either. So tabled application number 1, 484 Plank Road. The engineer we had been working with has retired. There's a new engineer. We have reached out to him for updates. He did not respond to my outreach, but I know he has reached out to the engineering department regarding stormwater. So hopefully we'll hear something soon, get new plans and updated information. For now, no action is necessary by the board.
Okay.
Likewise, application number 2, 1801 Fairport 9 Point Road. We have heard nothing more on that application. No action is necessary by the board.
Okay.
Into our new business. New business item number 1 is YMCA signage update. So the YMCA is located within the mixed-use district. The mixed-use district is unique in our code in that signage is under the purview of the planning board instead of the zoning board of appeals. The YMCA was originally approved prior to the area being rezoned for mixed-use development. So its previous signage was approved by the zoning board a number of years ago. So they're looking at signage both at the recently approved by the planning board, Irene Scalney, hopefully I said that right, Child Care Center. In this case, they're looking to do a second sign similar to the one that they did on the backside. This one facing towards Route 250. It'd be same general size, shape, and backlit as the one on the, would that be the west face of the building. Additionally, they're looking at doing updated signage for the YMCA itself. The YMCA is being renamed from the Eastside Y to the Hutch Family YMCA. Right now, the only sign, it looks like they removed it from this rendering. The only sign right now is under that sort of canopy on that'd be the south side of the building that says Eastside YMCA of Greater Rochester, Eastside Branch. They are looking to potentially keep that signage in addition to the new sign that they want to do on the top as a marquee with their updated logo, branding logo for the Y, as well as the name. Additionally, they're looking to update that sign that's on the building is in their old colorway. They're looking to do a new, I believe it's sort of a blue and purple sign to replace that one. It would be in keeping with the existing wayfinding signage updates that they've done in the last couple of years. This district's unique in that there isn't really a lot of hard and fast rules for signage. Signage is really up to the planning board to determine if it meets the few guiding provisions that are in the code.
The sign that faces 250 on the east side, that would change to the new logo?
Yes.
Okay.
So I believe in one of the other pictures, they've changed their primary colors for all their
Yeah.
signage. So that is the new sign colors. They would be updating. I believe the building sign is still the old.
Yeah, because there's a building sign, that monument sign.
And there's a couple of wayfinding signs that directs you for
Yeah.
the U of R to the back building, for the YMCA, where to park, and for the child care center, how to access that from the main drive.
Is there any signage now where the daycare is?
Yes, so the current, so where their new sign is proposed, no. That is
Okay.
Currently just the facade. They do have one sign facing the west side, which is the back side of the building.
Right.
If you're looking at like an aerial image, it's the side that faces their drop-off area and that. The proposed sign that they're requesting here would be on the east side facing 250, Route 250.
Can I ask a question too? So U of R also changed its signage. Is that something they're going to also do to update that signage as well?
I don't believe so. I believe U of R does their own, or has their own and does their own signage. While the buildings are connected, they're separate tenants. So if any updates to U of R signage would be done by U of R.
Okay.
That's always been the point of controversy with this location, because we've had it before when they wanted more signs there, and it was the U of R because they wanted more signage. So,
That was back under, so when the U of R addition was approved, the property was still zoned residential. I don't remember which, if it was R1 or R120 or something like that, but it was still zoned residential, so it was a conditionally permitted use, and the signage was subject to 250-10 of the code, which is the sign section of the zoning code. Under the mixed-use district, the signage review is excluded from Chapter 10, 250-10, and is under 5.12 under the mixed-use district code. So the U of R signage was previously approved under the old regulations, which is why there was, I believe they required variances for it, because there's very strict provisions in 250-10 for signage and different types of signage. The mixed-use district is very open to the planning board making a determination of what you find to be acceptable.
so it's going to meet code now, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So then the additional ones are just one? How many are they adding on? Just the one on the child care?
One on the child care and one on the Hutch Family YMCA, and then they're altering the existing building signage for the YMCA. So they're adding one to the YMCA, they're altering the existing one, and then they're adding a new one for the child care center.
And that'll be considered one now? Now that they're adding the names to the YMCA building, the names, whatever they're adding? That's going to be one sign, considered
Yes.
one sign?
Yes.
On the front,
Yep.
which is the east side, the south side, that's one sign.
I mean, they're two separate signs. There's no limitation on signs for, I believe the only limitation on the number of signs in the MUD is for specific advertisement and window, interior window signage and leasing signs. As far as building mounted and identification signage, there is not a strict requirement.
This one here, this photograph, so it's going to stay the same?
That's still going to, that's going to stay the same. That is for, they provided examples of their existing signage to inform what the new signage will look like. Correct.
Sure.
Yeah, if there's a good
You'll
spot,
have to
I guess.
come to an open mic.
Happy to do that. Matt Evans, Cornerstone Owners Representative for the YMCA.
Yeah, for the record, in the mic, if you could say your name and address,
I'll say
please.
it again, yeah.
Thank you.
So Matt Emmons, Cornerstone, 99 Garnsey Road, Suite 100, Pittsford, New York, 14534. Owner's representative for the YMCA. Some of you guys may remember me from the ELC application from a couple years ago, and then some of the pre-construction meetings with the engineers. Some of the board members are new, so I know you don't know us. And as Doug pointed out, it's done a very good job, Doug, by the way. Thank you. Of explaining the signage and kind of how we looked at it. So that front sign there is actually was permitted and was replaced under, it was just replaced for the colors that you had mentioned before. And that was part of the permit that we got as a part of the Eastside project, or I'm sorry, the Early Learning Center project from last year.
Okay.
Happy to answer any other questions
So
you guys
this sign
have.
is not changing. This is just an example for what the other signs are going to look like from a color scheme and logo change
To
perspective.
be honest with you, we provided the existing signage so that if you had questions about where there was existing signs, we'd be able to go around and look at all of them to answer any questions you guys might have about signage on the campus.
Okay.
So really, the two added signs obviously don't face 250, and the visibility really isn't until you get on the site.
So the one will, the Irene scale, is it Skelny?
Skelny, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
oh,
one will
okay,
be
that
facing
does
250.
face.
So
Okay.
where the sort of red
Gotcha.
icon is where the existing sign is, where the cloud bubble is where the new sign's going.
Okay.
So we'll have one on each side of the building.
And if you're going the speed limit and you look quickly before the orchard, you'll see it. Otherwise, you don't.
Any signs on the west side of the building?
West side, yeah, so yeah, thank you, Doug. Sorry to get me my directions.
That's going to be a new one right there.
So that is actually a rendering. We should have probably provided an image of what it looks like today because that is the ELC, which has been completed and had a sign that was permitted and was approved and installed. So the lettering and the naming is exactly the same size, same color, and that would just be on the back, and that would be stud mounted on the brick face on the back of the building, which is what fronts the street.
The 250 side?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
What about the, I know back then, didn't we discuss signage because on the doors or something back then? Front, back door?
I was not at the town when the YMCA was originally approved.
Over 17 years ago.
2006, right, the original
I know
approval.
that came up. That just shows sign. Sorry, Peter, but you remember. But I know it came up.
I mean, I remember when it was originally built. I used to go there. It's great.
Oh, my, for swim lessons, for the childcare.
Are any of the proposed signage going to be backlit or lit in any way? Are they?
The Skelny one is literally just the metal letters.
Okay.
It will not be lit. It's not currently proposed to be lit, nor do they, I believe, desire it to be lit. I can confirm that because it was not in the application that we were calling that out as backlit. I'm almost positive, but I can confirm that. And then the front one, yes, would be lit, right? That's the Hutch family made a very generous donation to get hopefully that sign put up there.
Matt, while you have this picture up,
Yep.
there is the existing YMCA Eastside branch signage on the brick facade there.
Yes.
It's not shown on this rendering. Is that to remain or is that to be removed?
It is to remain, and I think it's the angle, or maybe this picture is old enough that they used to do this rendering. So the Y did that internally.
Yep.
But yeah, thank you. That's the image we want to look at. So that, as an existing sign, we would be making application. So they do want that to stay, is the
Yep.
answer to your question. But the only thing I believe that we're looking to do is change the east side to Hutch, right? And then we may or may not apply to, once again, change the YMCA colors to match the rest of the branding that was redone in the signage as a part of that application for the ELC and the new site wayfinding package.
But that's not part of this application, update to that logo.
Correct. Yeah, we were, correct.
Not yet. Where's this U of R? I don't remember. Which side of the building was this, the U of R one?
That would be that side of the building as you go down YMCA Way.
This on
Before
the
you
west
get to
side?
what we call the back of the building, I guess I would say. It's
West
on
side
that,
entrance, right?
it's, I apologize, I don't know my west, yeah, there it is right there. It's on that,
Oh, yeah.
that corner before you go back to the entrance, if you will, for the U of R.
So you're heading in.
I know U of R signage is proposed to change, correct? It's just.
Not that we're aware of, no, that would,
I assume that would have been under a separate application.
it would be if
Because
they
they
were
have
doing it.
changed
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
I'm not aware that that's a current thing.
Yeah, I think we just got to keep a running count of how many signs you have and when, because it seems like they keep popping up. You know, we had the name, I can see the family name on them now. They keep popping up and, you know,
So
I don't know what the count is right now. You want to take a guess?
there's no limitation to the number of signs in the mixed-use district.
No.
So the regulations for, the only really strict guidelines are that the size, graphics, fonts, and color scheme should maximize readability and minimize visual clutter. So they do have very, not very busy designs. So I believe they meet that. Freestanding, being located close to the roadway, and signage no more than 20 feet in height, both of which are compliant. Tenant signage should be consistent color, size, and font, and designed to provide for a future replacement without losing damage to the signage substrate. They're not really leasing
there are
the
some-
space, so
there are restrictions.
There are limited
You said there's no
limited restrictions, but there's no limit on time in terms of, like, 250-10 has, specific provisions on how big you have the front face of the building to do a calculation on the maximum size of the sign that would be permitted on that side, and you're limited to how many signs you can have per side of the building. There's no limitations like that in the mixed-use district. The planning board really has the flexibility to guide what you want to see in terms of signage in the district.
Because it's going to be coming up. I mean, we have a lot of new things coming up along Route 250, so it's going to be popping up very soon, across the street, down the street. So we got to
Yep.
keep that in mind.
Right.
So the only thing we limit and restrict is billboards, ground-mounted or building-mounted, freestanding or exterior digital signs, signs with flashing or moving lights, or any sign that's not associated with the development. None of the proposed signs are in that prohibited section, and then we restrict the number of for sale, lease, and vacancy signs.
And I would also go, to your concern, just to say this out loud, is the first thing we did look at, and we did provide on these, is the overall square footage of these proposed signs based on the actual signage calculation that is in your code, to see if we had an issue or a concern, which is part of the reason why we came in. And then obviously the MUD, which is not applicable, as Doug, you just pointed out. So I feel like we've already kind of done that check, right? That's my opinion. That's why we're here, to ask you guys if everyone agrees and doesn't think that what we're asking for is egregious. I think the other thing we did look at and talk about too is that because of the MUD, they are not really separate tenants. However, the U of R is a separate tenant, so having separate signage in the MUD and tenancies is a thing, right? And the other thing is that the ELC was looked at as it is an addition. Well, I shouldn't say that. It isn't actually an addition to the building, right? Because it's a separate fire area. It's just connected with another thing. So once, with a connector building, right? So I think that was the thought of, like, when we did the signage for that one, was that it's a separate building. And the idea is that we're not trying to do something that seems, like I said, too egregious or just over the top.
And Matt, you did all the other signs?
We did not. We did the Irene Skelny one. We did that. Our design team actually did do that as part of with the signage vendor and the YMCA for the front entrance, which is on the back of the building, for the ELC. The rest of the signage that was part of the site and wayfinding signage, Terry, that stuff that we looked at, and there's a couple of images of the replaced signage. That was part of an application that we did work with this signage vendor and YMCA on that, so. The rest of it, though, to Doug's point, yeah, the U of R stuff, we did not have anything to do with that, nor do I have any knowledge that they're changing it or proposing to change it. And then the rebranding of the Y is obviously the big reason on the main YMCA why they're looking to do that new sign out front.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have questions, concerns? You know, I think there's minimal changes, I think, in my opinion, for the number of buildings, the size of the site, and the fact that they aren't right out there on 250 as a distraction. I don't have an issue. Okay?
So if the board is supportive, we would just request the board take a simple vote to approve the proposed signage and to authorize staff to send a memo to that effect to the applicant.
Okay, so anyone want to make a motion to approve the sign changes as described?
So moved.
Okay,
Seconded.
thank you.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Daly,
Daly, aye.
McCooey,
McCooey, aye.
Tydings.
Tidings, aye.
Okay, very
Thank you so
good.
much, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, our second new business item, Highland Estates phase change, or phase modification. So the planning board originally approved this subdivision back in February of 2022 as a 17-lot subdivision that includes the existing home. It's 16 new lots. It was originally approved as a two-phase subdivision, revised later to be a three-phase subdivision in 2023. At that time, the plat maps for Phase 1 and Phase 2 were signed by the planning board chair. Phase 1 has been filed with the county. Phase 2 has not, but has been signed by the planning board chairperson. The proposed change is to shift Lot 5, which was previously part of Phase 3, into Phase 2, and authorize the chairman to sign a new plat map. It increases the number of lots in Phase 2 by 1. Staff has no significant concerns. It will require some minor changes to letter of credit and some back-end stuff on our end, but there's no changes to the overall site design. All that is required would be a simple vote of the board to authorize the chairperson to sign the new plat.
Okay, any discussion?
Is there a reason for the change?
I believe there is someone interested in Lot 5.
Okay.
So by being able, so when it's filed with the county, the lots that are filed are the ones that are sort of buildable now. We wouldn't allow building on lots that have not been officially subdivided or subdivided as far as official filing. So for Lot 5 to be built upon, it would have to be part of a phase that has been signed off on and filed properly.
Thank you.
Okay, if things look good, is there a motion to approve this change, this one lot change?
Yeah, so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Daly,
Daly, aye.
McCooey,
McCooey, aye.
Tydings.
Tidings, aye.
All right. New business item 3, 47 Leedale Drive Coastal Consistency Review. So this is a fairly unique circumstance for the board within the LWRP. The planning board and the town board are really the two boards of jurisdiction for review. This is an application that's going before the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance and otherwise does not require planning board review and approval. However, the property is located within the LWRP review area and necessitates the submission of a waterfront assessment form and coastal consistency review. Under our code, it requires that the waterfront assessment form be forwarded on to the planning board for the planning board's review. In an initial review of consistency with the LWRP, I'd be happy to run through that if the board would like. Ultimately, what we're looking for tonight is if you believe that the action is consistent with the LWRP and won't pose a harm to the coast waterfront or the purpose of the LWRP, you'd vote to have staff draft a consistency recommendation memo, which we would provide to the Zoning Board of Appeals, who will ultimately render a final decision as part of their review of the variance application. So the applicant is looking to do an accessory structure on their property. They have an existing single-family residence and a large acreage. They are going to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance for the size of the accessory structure being greater than allowed by code. One thing to note in the LWRP code is that there are minor actions that are excluded from review of this waterfront consistency or coastal consistency review. Some variances are part of it, including setbacks and lot line variances. Unfortunately, this area variance is not included in that, which is why it is coming before the planning board.
So the variances are
For
the area
for the size of the building
size.
being greater than the size of the single-family residence. So it's a
By how much?
let me look that up real quick.
This is all residential area, right? There's nothing, anything.
Huh?
There's
It's
not-
residential.
Yeah,
It's
It's at the
residential.
end of a
There's no
cul-de-sac.
similar structures like this down there, right? In that
So-
neighborhood, so.
I
It's at.
don't know if any of the neighbors
house
also
at the
have
end of a
sheds.
cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
And then,
I've been there, unless they've
it,
built one since then.
yeah,
Have they?
no.
And I'm not aware of it.
So there is a house on this property. It's not just an accessory structure. That would not have been permitted under code and would have required its own variance.
It's been a while since the, sorry.
No.
It's been a while since the planning board, I think, dealt with a local waterfront consistency. So this is kind of like seeker, and, but it relates it to the waterfront. And the waterfront consistency area, or the LWRP area, is actually pretty large. A lot of it's already developed on the bay. It's single-family homes like this. And then the part that is more likely to be developed is in LaSalle's Landing. And so the reason why planning board hasn't seen it is because the town board has jurisdiction in that area. So I think Doug and I talked about this earlier today because of the posture of this. It does say that the planning board is the one that reviews the waterfront consistency or makes a determination. So
But
that's why
not
it's
the
here.
size variance, that's not
Correct.
where.
So the zoning board would need
Right.
to know that it's consistent as part of their review.
That's, well, my thought process, like, yeah, why should we forward a letter to them? If they want to make the decision to do it, let them do it. Because, right,
It's required under the code that the planning board
Yeah, it's-
provide a recommendation. So within the LWRP
so
code,
we want to recommend that they approve the variance.
Well, we
well, it's
wouldn't
it's
be,
not about the variance, it's about whether this is consistent with the LWRP.
With the LWRP goals. Doug,
So-
you want to do you have a copy you can, or you want to list what those are, or I don't know if they're in our materials?
Yeah, so going through the, sort of the action first, so when it's submitted, it has to be referred from an agency, in this case the town, to the planning board or town board if it's LaSalle's. And you should consider whether the proposed action is consistent with the LWR policy standards. The planning board shall require that the applicant to submit this stuff. The planning board's recommendation shall, so once it's done, the planning board shall render its written recommendation to the other agency, in this case the zoning board, within 30 days following the referral. The planning board's recommendation should indicate whether it's consistent or inconsistent with the LWRP. After that, the zoning board of appeals is the designated agency for the determination consistency for variance applications. The zoning board shall consider the written consistency recommendation of the planning board in the event and at the time it makes its decision to grant such a variance.
So what they have to do, like an application typically under seeker, they submit an EAF. So here they submit a WAF. And so the standards that you need to look at are in the WAF here, where it's the waterfront assessment. Click either yes or no and kind of walk yourself.
So there's
Yeah, those are the
13 main
standards.
policy statements. It's preserving historic resources of the waterfront area. The proposed structure is at the top of the ridge. It's not down on the waterfront. Foster pattern development in the waterfront area that enhances community character and preserves open space, makes sufficient use of infrastructure, beneficial use of a waterfront location. The property's not a waterfront location. It does go pretty close to the water, but down at the bottom, there's a whole set of other lots with small cottages on it. So it's not directly on the waterfront. Enhance the visual quality, protect scenic resources throughout the waterfront area. It won't be seen from the water. It's at the top of the hill. The hillside is wooded. It's at the top of the hill, part of the neighborhood. Yeah, there's a good
So it
representation.
goes right there.
Yep, so this is older mapping, so 47 and 54 and 50B were merged into a single lot. The planning board reviewed that, I think, back in December.
Now, is this something that the neighbors were notified that this was going to take place?
They will be receiving a postcard probably here shortly for the zoning board of appeals public hearing, which will be June 18th.
Which doesn't have effect on us because we still saying it meets this criteria.
Minimizes loss in life of structure, natural resources from flooding and erosion. Again, it's at the top of the ridge.
Yes.
But
So it meets our criteria.
So
We can pass it on to them. and
Yeah,
they can
so,
make the decision.
if you go through this criteria and
Yeah.
you determine that it's consistent, then you ask staff to prepare a memo to that effect to give it to the
We
zoning board.
got it, but he said
Yeah.
it meets the criteria, so.
It
yeah,
appears to,
consistent.
and it's, I mean,
staff
this is
believes
normally
so.
for a lot bigger projects, so.
So
and
realistically, part of the reason it's coming to you is there was never, I have to assume that they, in contemplating this code, they never looked at the chance that there would be an action, apart from some funding or other mechanism that's outside of really the land use jurisdictions, that would involve either the planning board or the town board. The zoning board's sort of a secondary in that they have the ability to approve variances. But realistically, that's why it's coming to the planning board as one of the two primary agencies for review. As provided in their site plans, they will be coming to the engineering department for an EPOD permit. They'll be submitting that simultaneously here shortly with their zoning board of appeals review. They are doing on-site storm chambers to control runoff within the steep slopes area, and where it will discharge, it'll discharge to stone.
Doug, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If they did not need a variance and they just wanted to construct this structure, would the waterfront assessment need to be made?
It's unlikely. There are,
Like, let's assume they didn't need an EPOD and all they needed was a building permit.
no, it would be
Yeah.
considered a minor action.
So it's only because they are seeking a bigger structure. That's why it triggers, because it doesn't
Okay.
fit in
Yeah.
the minor category.
So there's a whole list of 25 separate things that are considered minor actions for which no review is necessary. I said one of them earlier was variances. Unfortunately, the only variances they listed as being minor actions are setback and lot line variances, area variances, but not other area variances such as this one. One is official acts of a ministerial nature involving no exercise of discretion, including where building is
And so none of
where
those
building is
apply.
issuance predicated based solely on
We wanna be
compliance or
careful because
non-compliance
of it is
Building code.
location, and it has been brought up before, other things controversial down there, that end of the street, because it's near the water, things of that nature, so we just want to be careful.
Yeah,
make
so
sure that-
years ago, this, I don't know if it's the same owner, but they proposed to put this, a similar structure down there on this property.
Correct.
But there was no primary structure,
Right.
which is why, and then they did the mapping, the county mapped it, but it was without planning board approval, so now we're back where we were, and now it is an
And it
accessory.
is the same owner, as far, if I'm correct.
I think you're right.
I believe so.
know.
Yeah, so that one was originally, there is an existing boathouse on what is shown as 50B on the waterfront. They were proposing to do a subdivision in which the boathouse would be on a parcel by itself as an accessory structure and an accessory use
There we
without
go.
a primary
Nobody
use.
knows about that plan. I've been around a long time, so I remember all this stuff, sorry. You and me, I guess.
Well, it sounds like the ZBA is going to be at least having a public hearing on the 18th.
Correct.
So we're meeting again on the 11th.
Right.
I mean, we just got this.
Yep, this was
Like an
so
hour ago.
short notice. This was kind of an awkward one in which we were trying to figure out the proper process forward to bring it, whether we had to bring it to you guys as a full application or full review, or if there was, because it's again, it's an awkward situation that isn't well defined in our code.
Yeah, it sounds like, we do have time before the June 18th, as Steve points out. We have another meeting, so if people feel comfortable, we can table this until the next meeting. I do see one of the things on this checklist, yes, no checklist, I guess they're also still waiting for SHPO input.
I believe so.
Okay.
Under the EAF mapper, pretty much everything along the bay front is considered archaeologically sensitive. So they were submitting through SHPO for that. But I believe the area that they're proposing to place the building may have already been previously disturbed to some degree.
I know we're not reviewing the size variance, but just for my own clarification, it's not that the variance they're looking for is bigger than what's allowed. Did I hear you say it's bigger than the actual existing residence?
Yes, and the livable, so the way, the restriction on building size, accessory structure size in the town is 1% of the gross property area, or 192 square feet, whichever is greater. In most cases, it's 1%. I don't know the total number off the top of my head on the square footage of the property. I just know that the building is less than that 1%. But we have existing precedent in which the town has determined that an accessory structure that dominates the primary structure, in effect, becomes sort of like the primary structure. So we have required area variances when the accessory structure is greater than the primary structure. And the way they determine the size of the primary structure is they look at the habitable size, not the overall building size. So the square footage of the actual habitable area of the house, excluding the garage and basement and things like that. In this case, I believe it's a small ranch on the property.
It comes up more in East Penfield, so, where there's like
Yep.
pole barns and such.
So the principal structure's floor area is 1,476 square feet. The proposed accessory structure is 1,953 square feet.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions at this point, I would propose that we table this until our next meeting. Give a chance for us to read through this and digest this a little bit more, since it's kind of something new for most of us. So I'll make the motion to table.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Daly,
Daily eye.
McCooey,
McCooey, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay, anything else, Doug, that you have?
That was all the business I had for the board.
Okay, great. I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice.